This is the Old Musician's Blog, number 68. I'm hanging out here beside the garden. See the garden? And just came back from the bakery where Peter and I, we have to keep the door locked on the garden because, you know, the deer and everything. It's just a small garden. But Peter and I, at the bakery, we did a improvisational set. Very few people were there. Only Lucy and a couple of people coming in and out. But I talked to Merrill in the break, and he said that that's kind of normal for a Thursday morning when there's when there's nothing happening, and unexpected from people to have anything happening. So it was fine. You know, we're not asking him for anything to do these performances, and so it's very exciting, really, that to start in and make up music and have original ideas that happen in the moment. And you know, and I guess I pretty much must have stopped Lucy from making the calls so that people would come and do that and participate in that, you know, as an audience. But that's because I mean, you know, whatever. I don't mean it as an excuse, but it's just because I'm building confidence up, and it takes a little bit of time. And you know, on the way home, Lucy said, "Well, it's funny to hear somebody about who's I'm just going to sit down here in the chair." Who's been playing, you know, music for 30 or 40 years or whatever, all their life, or whatever you want to call it, and saying that they need confidence. I didn't say I need confidence. I said I'm building confidence, that it's a building of confidence that you know, is part of the process of taking something out into the public, and especially something that has an improvisational a component to it. Well, I mean, of course, jazz does generally, but I'm more talking about playing into the vibration of the moment as it occurs, and then merging it with somewhat thought out pieces like, Puccini, or The Mirror, or The Cycle, or March of the Mountains. And you know, I didn't do all of those, but they're all you know, they're all there in my arsenal. So, you know, and the other interesting thing, you know, is that Peter, as a drummer, you know, he was able to start some of the grooves off, and you know, then I would find something to play along to them, and that was very interesting because that opened up all other avenues of musical exploration. And you know, Lucy was there, and then B came in, and that was my two friends, and you know, that were there for the day. And you know, it's fine because it's you know, we're not like I say, we're not asking for anything, so I'm just letting it be what it is on a Thursday morning, or maybe a Tuesday morning. I could run from Tuesday from 11 to 12:30, and you know, that would be probably a good run. If I didn't start until 11, that would make it a better, more viable thing after the Monday night to have that Tuesday open up. And so I think we'll continue to be able to do this, at least up until next year sometime, when Peter just leaves and goes back to Boston. And, you know, that'll be, you know, I'll miss him and that, and musically, you know, especially being able to do this. But I think I can do it. I know I can do it by myself and with the piano, because I like to improvise, and that's, I think I learned that from my grandmother, because my grandmother, she was a rather schizophrenic. Her name was Angelica, and we all called her Baba. And as many of the things from the old country, even though she was a blue blood from the Doubleday family, and they all had come over on the Mayflower and all of that stuff, like a lot of Lucy's relatives also did. And when I was very little in New York, my mother, you know, would put me in a taxi from the Bronx, and I'd go across town through Harlem to Riverside Drive, and my Baba would pick me up on the at the taxi, pay for the taxi, and you know, she would take care of me. And I remember her often giving me toast with unsalted butter and strawberry jam. And I thought that was very good, especially with one of those little bottles of Coca-Cola that they used to have back in whenever that was. It must have been in the 50s, the early 50s. And I loved her a lot. And she couldn't walk very well. She was a bit crippled, and she was rather crazy. And when we would walk with my mother, you know, I remember going to the automat, and how my mother would walk, Sylvia would walk ahead, you know, quite a ways ahead, and Baba and I would hold hands and walk slowly behind her. And that's just the way it is with older and very young people too. But Baba had a grand piano in the living room in her apartment on Riverside Drive, where she lived for many, many years. And I would be underneath the piano, and she would improvise, and she would sing with her improvisation, and it was very moving to me. She would play these arpeggiated melodies that I found very compelling as a little tiny child, and I felt the spirit that she called upon in order to make that music. And somehow I feel that it's passed on to me in a form of lineage. And you can feel that. And it was always somehow my grandfather's side of the family that got the most attention. Maybe it was because my grandmother's side of the family were so well-to-do and so well established that they didn't seem to need as much attention. Yet as a grown man now, I find that is the attention of Baba and her family and that lineage that often nourishes my spirit in another way that is somehow unexpected and revealing.